The Rats are fleeing the Titanic. The Dolphins are 1-4, and oh goody, Justin Herbert and the Chargers are coming to town. Let's talk about it.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our hearts. We've got love that won't depart. We are always in the stands, 'cause we're super Dolphin fans. Football is mighty rough. Winning gets awful tough. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans, and welcome to the same old Dolphin Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Brain, if I sound a little bit more fired up tonight than I do typically, it's because I completely cleaned out my system earlier this week, prepping for a colonoscopy. And, I'm just feeling a little lighter than I used to, which is great. And the good news is that everything came out fine. Everything came out fine Monday night, and then everything came out fine Tuesday when I had the colonoscopy as well. So I'm doing a lot better than the Miami Dolphins right now. But thank you to you and David Behrman for holding down the ship on Monday while I was, let's just say, out of commission. Although I don't know why I'm going to be polite about it at this point after everything else that's come out of my mouth so far today. But regardless, here we are. Brain, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad that a weight has been lifted from you and out of you, and I'm doing well. We've reached my favorite time of year. I wish that the Miami Dolphins were having a good season because that would amplify what is already the best time of year. And look, I mean, obviously, what time of year is it? We could talk about fall. We could talk about the fact that it's sweater weather. But no, what I'm talking about is in the same week, I now have the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, the Real Housewives of Potomac, and the Real Housewives of Miami. 3 elite Real Housewives franchises all on TV at the same week. And I also have the Great British Bake Off. So every day is a great day, except for those 3 hours that the Miami Dolphins are playing football.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I can relate to that. I'm as those of you who are watching live on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel, and by the way, subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Take a moment right now, if you will, and smash that thumbs up button. Well, you can go ahead and put the little crawl up here. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you know every time we go live. But for those of you who are watching live, will notice that I am wearing a Chicago Cubs hat this evening because I'm also dealing with Chicago Cubs playoff baseball, which is very exciting. The Cubs playing for their lives later this evening as we record here on this Thursday night. They are hoping to stave off elimination once again and try to force a winner-take-all Game 5 in Milwaukee over the weekend if they can get the win tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. And that is just pure torture. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, on tonight's episode of Sods Extra, which you can listen to exclusively at Dolphins Talk Extra, which is at patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. You can join the fun for as little as $3 a month. Not only do you get our bonus segments, you get bonus shows from Mike as well. We're going to have our Dolphins Talk happy hour coming up for Patreon subscribers in a couple of weeks. So head on over there, check it out. If you're not part of the fun yet, it's worth checking out. You also get access to our Discord server, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. You can join the fun over there for as little as $3 a month. Want to give a special shout out as well to everybody watching on the I'm a Miami Dolphin fan Facebook page run by the outstanding Mr. Carlos Hernandez. And yeah, lots to talk about in the world of the Miami Dolphins this week, Brain. I think we're going to get into it right now. because, some people have caught on, and I mean, I think more astute observers will have caught on to this, a couple of weeks ago, but the rats are fleeing the Titanic, as I alluded to in the opening, which is, you've got Mike McDaniel's people and Mike McDaniel's camp leaking reports out to the press that, well, his hands are tied. There's only so much that he can do with this offense because it's built around Tua, and there's only so much he can do, and blah, 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 blah. And listen, if you are buying into any of that, I just want to remind you, and I was actually talking about this on the Dolphins Talk Extra Discord channel earlier this evening. There was once a time where you could separate Mike McDaniel from Tua Tagovailoa. There was a moment in time where you would have been able to separate that. But the second that Mike McDaniel marched into Stephen Ross's office and pounded the table for Tua Tagovailoa to get his new contract, their fates were sealed like that. That was it. From that moment on, their fates were inextricably twined, and there was no separating them because he doubled down. If he didn't want to double down, he had his out. He had his opportunity to move away from that cornerback, and he didn't take advantage of it. So, I think it's rich to hear Mike McDaniel's people, he's then, listen, he's doing the thing that NFL coaches do because he's trying to find his next landing spot already. He is still employed by the Miami Dolphins, but this man is not dumb. He knows that his time is short as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, and he is already working overtime with his buddies in the media and the reporters that have covered him and everybody else. He is working overtime to try to rehabilitate his image so that he can land on his feet with his next gig whenever he finally gets the axe. The question is, Brain, is this the week? Is this the week that Mike McDaniel gets the axe? Don't answer that yet, because I think we'll come back to it at the end of the show. I think it's going to be a nice way to wrap us up here today, because this episode of the show is all about Dolphins Chargers, because I mean, there's no better meditation on the state of the Miami Dolphins and their quarterback situation than looking at the Los Angeles Chargers and what they've managed to do with Justin Herbert. And, I think you could make the argument that maybe Justin Herbert has kind of fallen off these last couple of weeks, but I don't think you could. I think you look at the body of work of the two quarterbacks over the years that they've been in the league. And I mean, it's pretty clear to me that Justin Herbert is the superior NFL player overall. I think you will always be able to make the argument that there are certain things that Tua does better and there are certain things that Herbert does better. But overall, I think it's safe to say that Herbert is the better player and he's going to have a longer career in the NFL. And I think that's certain, barring some sort of catastrophic injury or something like that. But I don't want to make this a Justin Herbert Tua Tagovailoa show. All of that to say, the Chargers are coming to town and we got to preview that game today. And that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, make sure you download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphins Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere you get your podcast. Make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. It's your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. And yeah, I think I hit the rest of them. Oh, go to Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com is the spot where Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com for the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. Although I would tell you, if you are a Miami Dolphin fan and you are somebody who is longing for change from this organization, go to Caneswear.com and buy yourself some Miami Heat stuff, some Florida Panther stuff, some University of Miami stuff. Don't spend a dime on the Miami Dolphins stuff, because as long as people keep buying tickets to those games and buying the rivalries jerseys and buying all the merch and doing all of the things, nothing is going to change with this organization. And then we actually finally got word this week that, that is officially something that might force the owner's hand. We heard this week that actually from official sources, I mean, not official sources, but we heard through the media that Stephen Ross is, getting a little impatient with Mike McDaniel. And you hear Mike McDaniel's words, right out of his own mouth, talking about how he had a conversation with Stephen Ross. And the entire conversation was that Ross was frustrated. And all the conversation was looking ahead to trying to figure out how to beat the Chargers. Well, that tells me something. That tells me something. So let's look ahead to the Chargers, Brain, and let's figure out, what are the Dolphins going to do? How do the Dolphins beat the Chargers? Let's start on offense for the Dolphins. When the Dolphins have the ball and the Chargers are on defense, what is the route to success for the Miami Dolphins, Brain?
Well, you certainly have to be able to run the ball. And the Dolphins could not run the ball last week, and it was a major problem because they built this 17-0 lead primarily with their passing attack, primarily with Jalen Waddle and Darren Waller and Devon Achane, and it took Carolina about a quarter and a half to kind of figure out how to slow the passing game down. Remember, this was the Dolphins' first game without Tyreek Hill, and there was a lot of questions about how the Dolphins' offense was going to operate. What would be the usage of the wide receivers? You know, what would the route tree be, and such? Would they be a more predominantly run team? And I think the Dolphins used that uncertainty to their advantage and caught Carolina off guard. And Carolina, not a great defense to begin with, but that combined with Carolina turnovers early in that game allowed the Dolphins to build a 17-0 lead. But then the Dolphins were unable to sustain it because once Carolina figured out that they needed to take away the deep center of the field from Darren Waller, and that was going to effectively take Darren Waller out of the game, the offense essentially became, ins and outs and goes to Jalen Waddle and passes to the flat to either Devon Achane or Julian Hill or Tanner Connor. And that becomes much easier to stop when you cannot run the football. And Miami couldn't run the football regardless of how many guys were in the box against Carolina. So if you can run the football like they did against the Jets, then that can open things up in the play action game. It can suck more guys into the box to open things up downfield and in the seams for guys like Waddle and for Darren Waller. You're not going to have Tyreek Hill to bail you out. And so you've got to have balance. They have to be able to run the football. And I think you can do it against the Chargers. The Chargers have given up some big games on the ground. They gave up like 7 yards a carry earlier this year to J.K. Dobbins. They gave up somewhere around 7 yards a carry to Krosky Merritt from the Commanders last week. You can run on this football team. But if you're unable to do it, I think it puts way too much pressure on Tua Tagovailoa, who, look, I think Tua at the end of the day played a pretty solid game against Carolina. Did he come up where he needed to in the most clutch moment of the game? I mean, if the defense goes and makes a stop when they needed to make a stop, you'd be saying, yes, he did. But the defense didn't make a stop where they needed to make a stop. So he had another opportunity in an even more clutch situation, and he didn't come up where he needed to. And the fact with Tua is, look, he's limited. And if you take away his best weapon and you can take away what the Dolphins passing game wants to do, it doesn't leave a whole lot there for Tua to be able to take advantage of, given his skill set and the offense that's around him. So you absolutely have to be able to run the football. You can't run the football. Do I think they'll be able to put some drives together with Tua, hot, making some good plays? I do, but I just don't think that it's sustainable over the course of a game.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they're gonna have to find a way to have some success, whether that's getting Alec Ingold involved blocking, whether it's getting a little something more out of the tight end. Well, we've been asking them to get a little more out of their tight ends from a blocking perspective for a very long time. It's like screaming.
Tight ends can't block.
Yeah,
I mean, Mike McDaniel essentially said, like, Darren Waller can't block.
Right. Darren Waller is basically more athletic Mike Gesicki at this point. Is basically all it is.
That's true.
So the other question is now the Ravens bulking up on defense traded for Odafe Owe this week from the Ravens. So a big addition to them. The question is how much will he be involved on Sunday? That remains to be seen. Uh, I think for me, the long and short of it is the Dolphins need to get that offense going now, however they can. And I think, as you suggested, the key is you got to establish a run game. You got to figure out a way to do it. We'll go to the other side of the ball in just a minute, but first, a reminder to you also that if you are trying to make a bet on this game, and I don't know what the official line is, but I can tell you that I see a line of LA minus 4.5. Is that accurate? That's the last line that I saw, is that the Chargers were minus 4.5. But whatever the line is, if you're going to make a bet, the place to do it is mybookie.com. If you've never bet with them before, this is a great opportunity to start. You go to mybookie.com, and if you use the promo code Dolphins, you get a $500 bet back bonus token, which means that for your first bet, you can bet up to $500. And if you lose, you get all that money back, which is a pretty great deal, if you ask me. And I'm not like a huge gambling guy, but listen, $500 of free money, might as well check it out. Might as well get it. And if you win, then you win whatever that bet is that you laid. So check it out. Mybookie.com. Use the promo code Dolphins to sign up. And of course, if you're going to bet responsibly. So now we get to the other side of the ball. And this is where I'm genuinely curious to see how things go, because the Chargers offensive line has fallen apart. Do you have the injury report there in front of you, Brain? Are they going to get any help on the offensive line this week, the Chargers?
No, I mean, it looks like, I'm just pulling it up again. But basically it looks like Joe Alt is probably going to be out. Trey Pipkins is going to be out. And then what they'll typically do then is move Mekhi Becton, who would normally start at guard, over to tackle, to one of the tackle spots. And then Jamari Salyer would then step in and be a guard, but he looks like he's going to be out. And they really don't have much there. I supposedly in their last game, they played 4 different 5-man lineups on the offensive line. This is very, very much a makeshift offensive line that they're going to be going up against. And they're also going to be rolling with their third and fourth running backs in Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal. So
the Chargers are, it's rare that we get to say this, but the Chargers offensive line is a bigger mess than the Dolphins is at the moment. Honestly, I think that's probably fair to say. And it's a big reason that the Chargers ended up losing that game to the Giants a couple weeks ago. And it was part of why they really struggled to get things going against the Commanders in their last week. So now they've lost 2 straight games. So the thing that I'm really curious to see is, can this Dolphins front four that coming into the season, maybe we were not as high on it as other people were, but I think we were all a lot more bullish on this Dolphins defensive front, particularly the pass rush. And we have not gotten anything close to what we expected to get from this pass rush. Remember, before the season started, there was talk that this might be the best pass rush in the league. It really looked good. But what we're seeing is that Kenneth Grant is not quite ready yet. And the fact that he's not quite ready yet means that teams are able to match up more with Zach Sealer. And we're also seeing that Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are not the same players that they were prior to their last injuries. So they have not been as effective. And the question is, can this defensive front, can that pass rush actually make some progress and cause some pressure on Justin Herbert against this Chargers makeshift offensive line? Because if they cannot generate pressure consistently with just rushing 4 against this offensive line, that's going to tell you everything that you need to know about this Dolphins this Dolphins pass rush for the rest of the season. Because if they can't do it against this team, I don't know that they're going to do it against anybody.
Yeah, and I think a big piece of that is playing your best pass rushers. Because, yes, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, really good players. The Dolphins used a first-round pick on Chop Robinson last year, and he came into his own and looked like a really good pass rusher in the second half of last year. And he can't even get on the field. And I know he's a bit one-dimensional. He's not built to be a great defender against the run, but they're struggling to stop the run whether Chop Robinson is out there or not. So you might as well put him out there because of his ability to get after the passer, because the guy can flat out make plays when he's out there. And so I think if you put Chop, there's no reason that you can't put Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, and Chop Robinson all out there at the same time. I'm not saying you need to do it 30 times a game, but you could do it 15 to 20 times a game. And that's the combination that if you can put those guys on the field at the same time with Zach Sealer, that's going to make that front four, whether you call it a front four, whether it's one of the guys playing on the edge as an outside linebacker, however you want to set it up, it makes them really difficult to stop. But we're not really seeing that. Chop Robinson hasn't been able to get on the field. He's playing like a third of the snaps, which is crazy for a guy who was your first round pick last year and played really well. It's crazy to me. So I like, does the group as a whole need to play better? Yes. You want to see Jalen Phillips improve. You want to see Bradley Chubb improve. You want to see Zach Sealer improve, Kenneth Grant improve. Part of it is the guys. It's not all the coaches and who's out there and who's not, because the guys that are out there need to play better and, have the ability to play better. But give yourself a chance by putting your best dudes out there.
Yes. Let them play. Let them play. Let us get some Willie Gay out there.
We might get Willie Gay.
We're going to get Willie Gay because Dotson sounds like he's going to miss this game in the concussion protocol. Is that right?
It looks that way. I mean, interestingly enough, when Tyrell Dodson came out last game, the first guy that got a crack was KJ Britt. But it is to be noted that Carolina was just bludgeoning the Dolphins with the ground game, and KJ Britt is the better run defender of the two linebackers. So I think you will see a decent mix of the two. But Willie Gay, another guy who is a playmaker, another guy who can get after the quarterback, I know it's the preseason. I know you can't overreact to the preseason, but this guy was the best player on the field throughout training camp and the preseason. He should be playing more than a handful of snaps a game.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying. And so he's finally going to get his, he should get significant playing time. My guess is it's going to be close to a 50-50 split between him and KJ Britt. And I think it depends on game script. If this is a game where, the Chargers don't end up leaning all that heavily on the ground game because of their running back injuries, then this could be a game where it's more of like a 70-30 or 80-20 split for Willie Gay. And if Willie Gay goes out there early in the game and starts making plays, kind of hard to pull him off the field.
Absolutely it is. Let's talk about some of the other issues that this Chargers offense poses. As you mentioned before, they're down their top two running backs. Najee Harris out for the year with an Achilles, and Amarian Hampton picked up an ankle injury, and he has landed on IR. So now it sounds like we are going to get some mix of Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal in the backfield for the Chargers. They also brought in Khalil Herbert to their practice squad. I don't know how much we're going to see of Herbert because this would be a very quick turnaround from him. But it's like the thing that you want to say is, well, these are all backup running backs, third string running backs at best for the Chargers. But we just saw what Rico Dowdle did to the Dolphins last week. So it's hard to say, it's hard to just play that down. Although the fact that the Chargers are down so many offensive linemen, actually, you would think that maybe that plays in the favor of the Dolphins. But yeah. The Chargers are it's not just the running backs. They also have now a trio of effective receivers. A year ago, Ladd McConkey was basically the only guy on this team that could be reliably trusted to catch passes. But this year, Quentin Johnston has put all of the drop issues, or most of the drop issues, behind him, and he is now emerging as a true receiving threat downfield. He is a playmaker for this team. And then they've also brought back old reliable slot receiving legend Keenan Allen, who is just, you can see the chemistry between Herbert and Allen and the way that those guys connect. And I just, that is the thing that scares me to death about what this Chargers offense is going to do to the Dolphins, because the Dolphins have struggled in the short, and like defending short passes is something that the Dolphins have struggled with. And I just think exists a real possibility that even behind that makeshift offensive line, if the Dolphins can't get home, that Justin Herbert and those three receivers could eat the Dolphins alive.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the Chargers are even banged up at the receiver. Is that when you look at their depth chart, I mean, Keenan Allen, who, stays on the injury report, is their healthiest wide receiver right now. Quentin Johnston, has been limited at practice. He's got a hamstring. It sounds like he's trending towards playing, but he's not 100%. And then Darius Davis, who is their obviously Ladd McConkey is their healthiest wide receiver, and he's really their number one receiver. But Darius Davis is another guy that brings depth to that receiving core, and he was a DNP at practice. So this is a receiving core that's a bit banged up, and there's not a lot of depth there. Although, look, if Quentin Johnston plays, between him, Ladd McConkey, and Keenan Allen, it's certainly a trio that can give a Dolphins secondary that, is shaky at best. It could definitely give them a hard time. I still would give the Chargers the edge there because I do think Quentin Johnston is going to play, and I think Ladd McConkey in all of the matchups is the best player there, and Keenan Allen brings just a savviness, a veteran savviness that, look, if you line him up against virtually any of these Dolphins corners, Keenan Allen, I probably like him to win that battle, even if he doesn't get separation. He's just going to do things with his body positioning, his chemistry with Justin Herbert, that ultimately they'll find a way to get completions there. But I think this really comes down to the Dolphins needing to stop the run. I think if you can stop the run and make the Chargers one-dimensional, you give yourself a chance to really press that makeshift offensive line of theirs. And I think what you have to do is if you're going to play complementary on the defensive side of the ball, on the back end, if your plan is to get after the quarterback, you've got to disrupt the timing of these wide receivers. That means Rasul Douglas, Jack Jones, Ethan Bonner, maybe. We're seeing Storm Duck limited in practice. Maybe Storm Duck gets back out there. These guys got to get
our savior, Storm Duck, coming back. Save us, Storm Duck.
CB1 going into the season, Storm Duck.
Save us.
You got to get up on these receivers. You just have, if you're going to go down to Justin Herbert, go down trying something that you haven't really done. Play some press, bring some pressure, test this offensive line. Justin Herbert, historically, not a great quarterback against the blitz. I think you've got opportunities to get after him, create some turnovers. The Dolphins defense has created some turnovers the last couple of weeks. This is another opportunity. There are certainly concerns with the secondary, and you certainly can be concerned about the Dolphins' ability to stop the run, because they couldn't do it against the Bills, they couldn't do it against the Jets, and they couldn't do it against a backup running back in Carolina. I will say this about Rico Dowdle being a backup running back, is that Rico Dowdle was a 1,000-yard receiver, or 1,000-yard rusher signed by Carolina. He's not your typical backup running back, and nor is, Braylon Allen, who is, with the Jets, or, it's more of a two-man running back by committee that Carolina was trying to build here. And now it's just it was a one-man show because Chuba Hubbard was out. This is not that scenario. These are definitively backup running backs that would not be getting snaps on any team if not for injuries. So this is an opportunity for Miami to get right. And you would think that after the disaster that the run defense was last week, that it's going to be a point of emphasis. I'm not saying that they need to go out there and hold the Chargers to like 40 yards rushing. I'm not really expecting that, although I think it is a possibility with, as shaken up as the Chargers are. But can you hold them to like 4 yards a carry? Can you hold the Chargers running backs to 4 yards a carry? Because if you can, I think you give yourself a shot. But they can't be giving up 8 yards a carry the way they've been giving up 8 yards a carry the last week, because that does not give you a shot in any way, shape, or form.
We had a lot of heard a lot of talk from the Dolphins defensive players that it's unacceptable and we can't you don't start out the season thinking you're going to give up this kind of rushing yards, and it's this, that, and the other thing. We can't allow that to happen, and blah blah blah. Stop talking about it and go out there and make some stops. Go out there and make the tackles. That's what you got to do. And unless you do that, if the Chargers go out there and run all over you again, I just don't know how any of this is fixable, because that team is as banged up as it comes. And if they're going to gash you like that, well, then you're in bad shape. We have a super chat, Brain, comes from Randy Rogers on YouTube, and he asks, how long before Tua gets happy feet from the Chargers pass rush?
I think it all goes back to, being able to run the football. Look, the Dolphins offense has been and will continue to be an offense that's built on Tua getting rid of the ball quickly. But if they can't run the ball, that makes it easier for the Chargers to identify what the Dolphins want to do and take away Tua's first read, which will then give the Chargers pass rush the ability to get after him. And that's certainly a concern. Anytime a team has a good pass rush against, a Dolphins offensive line that's, well chronicled to be not great, it's something to keep an eye out for. But generally speaking, the last couple of games, the offensive line has done a fine job keeping the pocket clean for Tua Tagovailoa, and they did a good job of running the ball against the Jets, and they opened up the playbook a little bit, and they had Tua under center more, and they were running the play action and the bootleg stuff. But you can only do that if you can run the football, and that's really what it comes down to. If you can't run the football, you're relying too much on a limited quarterback with limited weapons.
All right, Brain, it's time for our hot takes. You ready for some hot takes?
Ready for some hot takes.
First, let me pose the question to everybody. We want to know, if you're watching us live on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel or the I'm a Miami Dolphin fan Facebook page, or if you're watching or listening on demand after the fact, let us know in the comments, what is your hashtag one hot take for Chargers at Dolphins this Sunday? We need to know, what is your one hot take for Chargers, not one hot tail, as was on the on the screen earlier, but hashtag one hot take, Chargers at Dolphins at Sunday. I'll go first, Brain, because, listen, there's no great mystery as to what my hot take is going to be. Alec Ingold receiving touchdown. That's it. It's there. I'm going to keep calling for it every week until it happens, or he's no longer on the team. So here we go. Let's we first posed the question in the Dolphins Talk Extra Discord. And so here are some of the responses that we got over there. Misha Rohn says Zach Wilson runs for a touchdown. That's a pretty hot take. Martini Jack says Herbert passes for 400 yards. Timbo says Herbert has 4 touchdowns as the Finns are embarrassed. Alex Pena says Chargers RB1, 200 yards rushing. And Alex, I love you. I'm calling you out on this. This is not an acceptable hot take because I think you got to pick one of those running backs to be the guy. You can't just say Chargers RB1. We don't know who that is. Is it Vidal? Is it Haskins? Is it Khalil Herbert? Give me a name, Alex. I want a name. But I do think it is possible. It is a hot take, I guess, that a Chargers running back could rush for 200 yards. Anjuna Abel says Dolphins win 28-24. Tua throws for 4 touchdowns. He adds in parentheses, I'm a delusional Dolphins fan. Patrick Mullen says Tua Tagovailoa announced as inactive 2 hours before kickoff. There was some concern and consternation from some folks when Tua popped up on the injury report Wednesday as being a limited participant in practice with a hip and thumb injury. And then we got a line from one of the Dolphins coaches saying that they didn't know whether the hip injury was the same hip that Tua was having problems with before, which definitely seems like a line of bull. But I think that would be a very hot take. That's a very hot take because it certainly feels like Tua, who was a full participant on Thursday, is going to play on Sunday. Al Craig 23 just says another embarrassing loss for the Dolphins. Wida says Ross will attempt to give Jim Harbaugh a Finn shirt after the game, and Jim will simply laugh and spike the shirt over the goalpost as he leaves the field. A very hot take right there from Wida. B. Dolphin says Tua throws a game-winning touchdown in a last-second win. She adds, you said hot take, and that's about as hot as it gets. Hard to disagree there. Couple more here. Mr. McDolphin says Tua Tagovailoa will leave the game due to injury. He'll hurt his thumb, hip, and have a concussion. Dolphins Talk says not one, but 2 banners will fly over the stadium. One saying fire McDaniel and Greer, and the second one saying sell the team Ross. Wow. Wonder if Mike has some inside knowledge there, because that's the other thing. That's the other thing that I think that's the other seat that's heating up. Not that there's anything anybody can do about it, but man, we'd love for Stephen Ross to get out of here because that's part of it. We also got a few responses on Twitter. Jay Spencer says Dolphins are going to be shut out at home, 30-0. Rambo Finn says Tua will have more interceptions than touchdown passes. Jordan Murray says our defense shows up to play this week. Kimbo08 says Tua gets to see his kids after throwing 5 picks. And Professor Lou says Mike McDaniel is fired Monday. How about this? From Bow to the Fin, Tua is going to drop 5 touchdowns with Waddle bringing in a career high 3 touchdowns. How about that? Did we get any here in the chat, Brain? Did we get any here as we're live on the show? Jordan, here we go. Victor Lonzano says Haskins and Vidal combined for over 150 yards rushing. So some good takes there. Brain, what is your #1 hot take for Sunday?
I'm going to do a combination here. This is sort of like a parlay if you want to go to mybookie.com and bet on some props. I don't know if you'll find playing time on there or snap counts on there as a prop bet, but if you can, I've got Chop Robinson and Willie Gay each playing more than 50% of the snaps, and each gets a sack.
Okay, I like it. I like it a lot. Very good. All right. Well, then now it's prediction time. Let us know what you think. What are your thoughts? What's the final score on Sunday? Who's going to get the win? Who's going to get the loss? Brain, what's your prediction?
Look.
See, I like the wind up here. I like the wind up already. I love he starts it. Look, this is good. This is going to be good. Go ahead.
This team needs to lose games. This team needs any cloak of optimism and hope to be ripped off. They need to accept failure and they need to lose football games. Now, I'm not saying that the players should go out there and try to lose. No, they're professionals. They should go out there and try to win. They got to put tape out there. They're playing for their livelihood. They're playing for the other guys on their team. They should absolutely try to win. But the best thing that could happen for the Miami Dolphins going forward this season is to lose as many games as possible. And this feels like a game that they should lose. The Chargers are definitively a better team. The Chargers are a more physical team. The Chargers are a better coached football team. The Chargers have a better quarterback. The Chargers have a better defense. And that's why the Dolphins are going to piss me off and they're going to win this football game. They're absolutely going to win this football game.
Oh, my goodness.
The Chargers are going to come in banged up, making the West Coast to East Coast 1 o'clock start. The Dolphins are going to be fighting for Mike McDaniel's job like they did against the Bills a couple weeks ago at home, and they're going to play their best game at home. They're not going to run away with the game, but it's going to be a close football game. Tua is going to be here in the comparison to Justin Herbert all week leading up to the game. The Dolphins are going to do a better job of defending the run. Willie Gay is going to get out there because they have no choice but to play him, and he's going to make plays. Chop Robinson's going to get out there, and he's going to make plays. And the Dolphins are going to take a lead late in this game, and they're going to need their defense to make a stop. And is their defense going to make the stop? No, of course they're not going to make the stop, but it's not going to matter because the Chargers are going to blow it, and they're going to miss a game-winning field goal, and I'm going to be pissed off that the Dolphins win 24-23.
Unbelievable. What a prediction from the brain. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a game with a lot of long drives. It's going to be some stupid penalties. It's going to be ugly at times. There's going to be turnovers. And at the end of the day, I asked you earlier if you thought this was going to be the end of the line for Mike McDaniel. I'm saying it is going to be the end of the line for Mike McDaniel after the Miami Dolphins lose at home 31-13. To the Los Angeles Chargers. And it is Jim Harbaugh, the coach that Stephen Ross once so desired to be the head coach of his Miami Dolphins, that comes in to his billion-dollar stadium and embarrasses his franchise, that ends up being the coup de grace that eliminates and ends Mike McDaniel's tenure as head coach of the Miami Dolphins. The Chargers defeat the Dolphins 31-13. And that is all I have to say about that. I guess we'll see how it plays out. Either way, we're going to be back here Monday night, reacting to the game, getting your thoughts on it. So make sure you join us. Make sure you're subscribed to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Again, smash that like button, share, like, subscribe. Make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Subscribe to Dolphins Talk Extra at patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Yeah. That's what's going to happen. Anyway, we're going to get out of here. We're going to head on over to Patreon. We're going to head on over to Dolphins Talk Extra, where we're going to do our bonus segment. You can join us too at patreon.com/DolphinsTalk if you want. If not, we'll see you Monday night. Take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, even when it's hard, go Dolphins!
Boycott Hard Rock.